Just give a little bit of my story. When I was 20, I went through a phase of abject darkness. Disenchanted with everything around me. Just happened just like that. Excited about going to university, working in an excellent industry, feeling really good about myself. And then, after 2 years there, I became totally disenchanted. Because it was then that I had a little chance when working to explore life a little bit as people lived. And there was nothing I found that was really soul satisfying. Absolutely nothing. And that brought me into a place of disappointment. That all of these studies and aspiration, where it's leading to. And I didn't see any value then in academic pursuits. It almost felt that the more educated I would have become, the more ignorant I would be. And what stood out for me more than anything then is the inability to control thought. I thought then that how can I ever be wise if I cannot control my mind? And not only that, but my heart was so empty. I never had an intense feeling as lovelessness as in that period. Even though childhood was happy and I felt that I enjoyed things, I became intensely aware of the lovelessness of my being. And all the youthful happiness disappeared. And I started to ask myself, what is love? How can I get into a state where I can feel love every moment? I started to contemplate that. And when I looked at people, how can they be happy? Just in this kind of experience. And that really struck me, that are they really in love with everything? And I wanted to experience love. I wanted to manage my mind. I wanted to connect with whoever sent me here, because I felt, what am I doing in this world? I don't even know who I am. I don't know who God is. I don't know what life is. What am I doing in this world? So all these questions bothered me so much, it became sleepless. I started to read every book that I could, pursue everything that I could to find answers. So I went through a really dark period. I remember, because I gave up my job in industry and decided I'll go to teach, because let me be in a more humanitarian setting. My bosses were wondering what I was doing. And people were wondering, how can you move from the petroleum industry and go to teaching? And but I couldn't do anything but get into a more humanitarian consciousness. And it was then, whilst teaching, that I started to explore the spirituality even more. And that eventually took me to India, because I realized then you can only learn from a master, not from a book. I remember one day, and this always stands out in my mind. I was at the library in one of the cities here. And because I love to go to the libraries, because reading became my passion, looking for the different books that I could learn more. And it was Saturday, all the shops were closed at midday. And I'm sitting out in the park. A lot of people going home, and the city is a little bit empty. And it was just me and a lot of these homeless people around. And then I started to think, how am I different from them? They have lost all faith in humanity. They have no standards. They are completely dispossessed. Disenchanted with life. They are just surviving. And I'm watching this one lying here, this one sitting there. All with their little possessions. And I'm thinking, how different am I? How different am I? And that's the first time it really struck me deeply that I'm just like them. That was really a very humble thought that came to my mind. I'm no different to them. So life had taken me into such a place of darkness or disenchantment that the depression was so strong. But I never lost faith in the divine. And because of all the books I was reading, I knew that there was a path I had to find. And I'm one of those intense persons who, when I am searching for something, I look for the best guide and the best teacher. And so that's how I traveled to India. When I travel through India, I'm searching, and of course, I couldn't imagine going to India with a little bag on my back. I had 3 suits of clothes, one that I was wearing, one that was washed, and a spare one. A towel, blanket, and that's what I had. And that's how I traveled through India. And after about 3 weeks in India, I went to this ashram. I didn't have any expectations at all, because I went to meet a person that I was referred to from Trinidad who was living there. And when I entered that ashram, it just felt so welcoming. It was an unusual feeling. And I felt that I had come to a very nice place. The energy of the space was really welcoming. The space felt very nice. Lovely gardens, lovely temple. And the first night, I sat in the meditation hall and I was chanting with everybody, listening to the chant rather. I felt I was in a hall in heaven. These sounds, they held me. They welcomed me. And I could actually feel, so it was like celestial voices. It was just ordinary people singing, but the energy of the whole just felt so, so beautiful that I could swear I was in heaven and hearing all these voices. And so I felt I want to stay in this place a little bit. So I decided to go there just for one day. But I decided to stay. And of course, the lady who was there, she encouraged me. She was Trinidadian. And after about a day or two, that's when a beautiful experience happened that opened my heart. In the midst of the singing that I was already enchanted with, my body began to sway, my hands began to clap just like this. And I'm saying, oh my God, what is this? How my hand can clap? And I'm just witnessing my hands want to move to the rhythm of the music. My body want to sway. And then I felt my heart opened up. And I felt, oh, this feels so good. And I just welcomed this wonderful feeling of heart opening, hand moving, body swaying. And I started to become curious about this. It felt a little bit like magic. And then only when I started to read about it, then I understood that it was Kundalini and Kundalini awakening. The days that went after, I could feel that the mantras were coming out of my mouth automatically. And not only was I swaying in the meditation hall and moving with the rhythm of the music and feeling this heart opening, but when I started to walk, I started to feel that I'm walking in air. My footsteps were soft and moving, and so whatever it was taking over my movements, was opening up my consciousness to more. And that was the beginning of what is called a Shaktipat. Master was not there, but that was the beginning of what is called Shaktipat. I was infected, as it were, or impacted by the energy of the Master. it took me maybe about a week before I could actually think of the master as my master. It took me about a week and a half. And when I finally decided this is the master I want to follow, I started to read everything, and then this energy just started to open up more. And I completely began to enjoy working in the space. The depression started to disappear because I could feel love now. And not only that, I began to feel that there was some power inside of me that's guiding me. So God became real. God became immediate. And God became a presence in me that was bigger than me. And that continued. That never stopped. And at times when I would seem to lose the energy, I would just sing again, repeat the mantra again, get into the space of the chanting, and all of a sudden it would happen. And it must have been about a month, I stayed there, a month and a half, and then I decided to travel through India, because if this place could have such an impact on me, what about if there's a master who was in India and who could support this? But when I traveled through India, I didn't find another master. But what was significant is that the energy that was awakening me there, whenever I would go into any temple setting in India, I would feel the same energy vibrating inside of me. So then I had a meter, as it were, for the energy of spaces. So I would know which is a pure space, which is a nice space, because it would wake up this energy inside of me. So I had a whole new experience of traveling through India after that. And before I left India, because I decided to leave after 4 months, my ticket was for 4 months. So if I had to stay in India for beyond 4, I would have no way of coming back. So I had to decide in my mind whether to stay there indefinitely, because that was my plan initially, or whether I should leave and come back. But by the end of 4 months, I was strong enough. I felt this divine power in me because I traveled through India and it stayed with me. And I decided then to come back. So, but about a few months on my journey, I started to feel a trouble of the brow, which I didn't feel before. I started to feel that something was happening here. And whenever I started to focus there, the sleepiness would begin to disappear. The dreaminess from the meditation would begin to disappear. And a firm kind of mental state would arise. So that began to feel nice. And that stayed with me. It would come when I would focus, or it would come when I am in the meditation or the chanting. It would come, but it wouldn't stay with me. But when I came back to Trinidad, after a while, it began to stay with me. And then I knew that the divine was with me at all times. I could tell the moment I focused here, I could actually feel it. Apart from that, I had to chant a lot and be in nice spaces for this energy to stay with me. But when it came to the brow, eventually, and started to stay, then at all times I could feel that I'm with the divine is with me. And that was the happiest time of my life, to feel that God is with me and I'm with God. So I knew that that's connected to the brow center. And I felt masterful at the brow. When I came back here, I went back into teaching, and then the classes were fascinating, because now I could stand in front of a class. I can feel a presence in me. I could not only my presence, but something divine inside of me, and the movements, the fluid movements, would still be there. If I were drawing a circle on the chalkboard, my hand would almost make a perfect circle. So I just felt the fluidity of the movement, and if I just put my intention of creating a circle, the hand would create a circle. When I opened up my heart to love and to speak, the words would just flow out of my heart. And so that was an exciting year. The kids loved me even more. I spent more time with them, and teaching became not a job, but a passion. I totally enjoyed being with the kids. And during the midday, after a while, I started to sing with them. And after every lesson, I'd tell them stories, and so if I never stayed home really. But if at all I had to stay home, for whatever the reason might be, the kids dearly miss me. So going to school was just so nice. So it changed my whole outlook. It changed my way of doing things. It changed my consciousness. And when I came home here, it influenced the entire family, because I would never ask them to come and sit with me. So I was disciplined. I would do the Guru Gita myself. And then afterwards, one of them will come and join me. And then another one will come. And then another one will come. And pretty soon we were all in the house chanting. And I didn't have a drum, so I used to beat the floor. And we're chanting. It used just to be so nice. So it transformed my being, it transformed my family, it transformed my work. So that's the power of Kundalini. When she is awakened within you, you begin to feel the presence of the divine in you ultimately. You begin to feel the power to guide your own lives and to take a hold of it. And she transforms every level of being. So my physical work became nicer, my emotions became nicer, my expressions became nicer, my everything became nicer. So Kundalini has been that cornerstone of my life. And over 3 years, that became very steady. Of course, I went back 2 years after to India. I felt the need to be back in India, but then I did my training in Siddha Yoga, and Swami Muktananda was there, so I had a chance to be with him, and at the end of it, meeting him, and not needing the meeting so much, but wanting to be appreciative, because I felt so nourished inside. I almost left India without meeting him. Because I didn't feel the need to say goodbye to him. And then the lady reminded me, "Oh, you're not going to see him before you leave?" And I said, "But I didn't think of that." And it was only then that I made an appointment to see him. And then it was such a beautiful appointment because I did the training course. He wrapped a shawl around my neck, and then in that moment I felt so grateful for his presence. And when he started to ask a little bit about Trinidad, I didn't want to really speak. I just wanted to stay silent in his presence. I just asked to bow to his feet. So I held onto his feet like a father, like a son to a father. And he took his walking stick. Of course, he was older then, so he had his walking stick with him. And he took his walking stick and put it straight over my back. I felt then tremendously blessed. And then I'm thinking, but I'm a new person. Maybe I should ask him for a name. And then I asked, would you give me a name? And then he lifted his head, he closed his eyes, he tilted back his head, and then when he came back, he said Vasudeva. So that's where I got the name Vasudeva. And so that was my meeting, my beautiful little meeting with Swami Muktananda. In personal meeting. And after that, it was just about 8 months after of deepening experiences that my 40 days happened. When my 40 days happened, my whole life changed completely. Even though every part of the transition was so beautiful, but this ultimate transition was beyond my imagination. Beyond my imagination, because the experience became fully divine and not human. So that transition from the humanity and the traces of the humanity to complete divinity, it's a huge shift in the consciousness. So of course some of you would have known what I went through in the 40 days, but that's a whole other story to tell that I don't have time to tell it here. But it's an amazing journey of 40 days. And the crown just opened up at the end of this. And I felt so relieved because the 40 days were stressful. the energies were stressful in my being, and it felt like a mother, the stress a mother would be going through to give birth to a child, and when this crown opened up, I felt so hugely relieved. I couldn't eat properly during those days. I had to restrict my diet big time. But at the end of it, oh my God! So when breakfast time, they would bring a glass of milk. I was secluded, and then that morning I asked for more milk. Suddenly the stomach was at ease, and life became completely different afterwards.